Hi everyone, welcome to this video on lesson 3 of the variation and inheritance scheme of work. This is an absolutely brilliant lesson, and having spoken to Naomi about this, Naomi Austin at Homely Park, who planned this lesson, I think it's a really nice example of one of those lessons that kind of brings in a lot of the big ideas that crop up elsewhere within the scheme of work into one lesson. And it's also a lovely lesson because it really helps you view actually, it really, this lesson and kind of helping Naomi to prepare the resources for this, it changed the way I see a lot of human things as well. Yeah, it's just a great one to really get students thinking and really apply this concept that we want them to get across. And that concept, that big idea, is this idea that actually, if we're looking at it from a strictly biological point of view, the purpose of lots of things in life is to reproduce. And lots of the other things that we talk about to do with energy and feeding and all of that business actually comes back to this fundamental idea that reproduction and kind of selective pressures, as we might say later, are driving lots and lots of things. So I've done this as a sketch. Now, to be honest, doing this under the visualizer probably isn't the best way to teach this lesson, but I think it's helpful for me to have some way of illustrating the kind of things that I will be talking about with students in this lesson. And what we want to do is contrast organisms that are kind of lacking food and lacking energy and so on. We want to contrast that with organisms that have this plentiful supply of food and are essentially looking healthy. So I don't know what creature this is. My artistic skills aren't the best. This is where I would say go online, find some videos, find some images that you can put side by side. I think the side by side layout is really helpful here so that students can compare and contrast. But what we want them to notice is, look, if this is an organism with a lack of food, then and I've tried to show that with the kind of ribs sticking out, and it looks a bit, the growth is stunted and so on. How is that going to affect its chances of reproduction? And contrast that with a healthy looking one with big muscles and so on, and get students' ideas here. You want to get them thinking about why having more food might help their reproductive chances. So they might point out things like it's kind of bigger, so it's more likely to kind of it's going to be able to escape predators and so on. It's got big muscles, so I might add something about the muscles here. I might add something about the larger size. Hopefully they'd recognize you may have to point this out, but if you've got plenty of food, you've got more energy to produce more gametes. So I might put here, produce more gametes. The muscles, and things like bigger ears and stronger neck. If it was a lion, which I would like to have been able to draw, but my artistic skills aren't that good. But you might have more kind of I can't remember what it's called for a lion, plumage or whatever it is, the ruffle. But yeah, and you can think of all sorts of examples. There's pictures in the slides of the different birds, peacocks, all of that stuff. All of these things that can help us attract mates because, or help organisms attract mates because it looks like they are healthier and therefore they have essentially better genes. What we want to do is draw students' attention to all of this stuff and say, look, you need energy in order to attract the mate because with the larger size and the bigger muscles and producing more gametes and so on, you're more likely to successfully reproduce. So you can contrast this and get students thinking in terms of all this. Now, this is just in the kind of younger stages, and if you go to the deliberate practice at the end of this lesson, this kind of addresses the first two questions. So why is energy needed when an organism reaches its reproductive phase, and why might energy be useful when an organism is trying to attract a mate? You could do similar diagrams here to do things in terms of raising offspring and making sure offspring can survive and so on. You could also do something similar to do a contrast between winter and summer, and the fact that in the winter food is not readily available, so actually it's not going to be a very good time to reproduce. You could also say it's colder, so you need more energy to keep your offspring warm, whereas in the summer actually it's a lot easier. But again, if you just show students side by side these kind of different cases, you can really get them thinking about why it is that energy is so important. Now, why is this important for the wider scheme of work? Well, just to reiterate, this comes back to this big idea that as biologists, what we are assuming is that all organisms' purpose is to reproduce and continue the species. That's the big idea that underpins natural selection and Darwin's theory of evolution, is that essentially organisms want to survive. And this is going to really set up a lot of what students study later to do with adaptations and the different features and so on, because all of those features that we're going to look at in the adaptations lessons are really about allowing organisms to pass on their genes or their DNA, if you wish. They're going to allow organisms to pass those on with a better chance of success. So this lesson really tees that up, and it kind of contains everything in one lesson, but also in a relatively concrete sense. And we'll keep coming back to that big idea again and again and again throughout this scheme of work.